Oh, well, welcome to our next episode. And this week I'm really excited because I have such a beautiful guest to share with you. I've got Miss Kara Melendy, and my gosh, if you don't know who this woman is, you're about to find out and be pleasantly surprised. She is here really supporting thousands of light workers and healers and star seeds in aligning with their highest path for abundance, impact, and freedom by tapping into cosmic intelligence. She's an astrologer, certified Akashic Records Practitioner, and also holds a master's degree in psychology. Wisdom from each of these modalities is incorporated into all of her work. And Kara has gone from struggling entrepreneur was overwhelmed with debt and confused about her life path to multi six-figure business queen, deeply aligned with her purposeful work on this planet, which I love so much. She's on a mission to help as many light workers as possible do the same. And she combines her spiritual practices, cosmic wisdom, and psychological tools to help you elevate into true wealth, reach more people with your healing gifts and message, and connect with your highest timeline for this life's journey. Kara, welcome. I would love for you to just say hello and share whatever's on your heart about just all this beautiful work that you're doing in the world.
Oh, thank you, Michelle. It is so wonderful to be here, especially as we kick off the new year. This is going to be such a game-changing year for so many of us. So this is the perfect time to have a conversation around connecting with our highest path for the year ahead and coming back to our soul blueprint. So I'm honored to be here. And I know we were just talking about how we've known each other for years online and kind of followed one another's journey. And it's so fun when we're able to see that progression over time. So thank you for having me as a guest.
Oh, I love it. I'm super excited. I've got so many questions. So I'm just going to dive in so we can learn more about you and all the beautiful work that you do in the world and
Awesome.
hope that this train going by is just profound sound as we start in. Perfect. Okay, well, I want to know one thing that always just fascinates me because my spiritual awakening really didn't happen until about the last 6 years or so. I feel like it's been a good decade, but in the making. And so I love the conversations about what was your journey? Like, did you start off with this kind of information and knowledge as a child, or was it something you discovered along your path? So could you start with that, please? Because I get fascinated with that.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, how I see it is we are all spiritual beings that choose to incarnate on this planet, and we have different intentions for our journey. Each of us come in with different things we want to experience, different things we want to contribute to the planet. So, at our core, we're all on that spiritual path. And I think when we awaken to that, it's even amplifies the power of it when we awaken to our gifts and we gain deeper clarity on what our purpose is at any given time. So, for me in my own personal journey, I always felt spiritually connected, even as a child, which is sometimes kind of funny to hear. But even as a kid, like I really felt this connection to my angels and my spirit team. And
Mm.
early on in life, it did take more of the form of religion. And since I've kind of branched away, but at that time, it was more in the form of religion. And I would pray to my angels. I always felt there was something more than just being here in human form, being in this physical body. And over time, of course, it definitely began to evolve. I began to explore more of what those spiritual gifts looked like and how I could offer them to the world. But I always did feel that connection from a very young
Mm.
age. And I was fortunate to be led to like the right teachers, the right healers at the right time on my journey that helped me awaken those gifts, that helped me heal from past trauma, that helped me deepen the connection to my spirit team, to my higher self. So the right people came in at the right time. And as far as kind of helping others on their spiritual journey, that was definitely an evolution because my background is actually in psychology. So I started out working as a psychotherapist. So I always knew I wanted to help people. But when you think of being an Akashic practitioner or astrologer, that really wasn't an option in the school system anyway. It's like the closest thing would be, oh, you go into psychology. So I always had that desire to really help other people. And, after going through even working as a psychotherapist, I was brought back to my initial calling, which I really do feel is to do the spiritual work on the planet. So the Akashic Records came into my experience.
Yeah.
Astrology came up again, and I really just started going down that path. So it's kind of been an interesting journey to get to the point where I'm helping others on their spiritual journey. But again, I feel at the core, it's like we're all on a spiritual journey, like each and every one of us are. So it's just the awareness of where we are in that process.
Yeah, I love that a lot. Like I was just flashing back as you were talking. It's like, I grew up in different churches as well, like different school, Catholic school, Christian school. And it was something my parents just wanted us to do. They didn't go to church, but it was very important for them. And when I look at the bigger picture of things like that, it's like, it's not an accident that that happened either. And so, yes, I started to fall into my spiritual discovery, and all the breadcrumbs started leading to learning more of who I was. And so I wouldn't have been able to tell you today, I mean, like 10 years ago, that this is what I'd be doing today, but I can't help but do it because I believe the same. I really discovered who I was. I answered questions that I remember not feel like were connecting when I was a child. Like I knew there was something deeper I was looking for, but maybe didn't have the words, right? And the experience. And I really feel like I've really come into that more and more and more, especially in the last 5 years, intensely. But then to show up and share out and share the world, that this is what I do, and I love numerology and numbers and astrology and all these areas, I had to really own up to this is who I am at the
Mhm.
core, and really accept and love myself through whatever I perceived myself to be before. And I think that's one of the beautiful keys that this work brings us home to ourselves in a remembering.
Oh,
And so,
beautifully said. It does. It brings us back home to our truth. And I think, sometimes it can be scary to come out and talk about astrology or numerology or these things that we think other people may perceive as odd or strange. But I do feel a collective awakening and desire, like
mhm,
that more and more people are having to learn more about this, like the
yeah,
awakening to the fact that, of course, I'm so much more than my body. And if we look at that, our body changes throughout our life. So of course we're not our body, and we start to awaken to there's more going on. So I think, more people are seeking out this information and this support. And the other part of it too is if we have a calling to do this work, it's not going to go away. That calling's not going to go away. And I think the best thing we can do is really own our gifts and own what we're here to
yeah,
do on the earth plane. And that looks different for everyone, but we're going to feel the most satisfied if we're living a life that honors what our gifts are and what's in our
yeah.
heart to share.
Yeah, absolutely. I know one of the biggest things I wrestled with straight off was, why am I so much older than everybody else and just now figuring this out? And so I come across a lot of my clients in the same thing. They're in their late 40s and 50s, and they're like, where have I been, under a rock? And yet going through all those things so we can go and release the trauma and let go of survival mode and really understand what that's like. And I think it's kind of befitting, at least from the work that I'm doing in this world, is my people have been through a big transition. There's been a big series of loss. There's been something that flipped the rug upside down and awakened us in that way. And there are gifts to be shared. And so it's really about, like you said, coming home to your truest self so you can be that fullest expression. And I had a lifetime of not feeling safe to fully express who I was. And
Mm.
it just really welcomed me into, oh, I'm safe to be me. And what is me? Who am I when I'm not doing all the things and I actually nestle into the being? So it's been really profound shift.
Oh, that's so beautiful. And I think, it's all in divine time because, again, we each have different things we want to experience on this journey. So sometimes people may say, why am I just awakening to this later in life? But your journey that led you there is really, that was just as powerful, right? That was just as
Right.
much of their story. So it all is in divine timing, right? No time lost. And the safety
Absolutely.
piece, I think the safety piece is so key as well. That comes up, I know, for so many women that I support too, just feeling safe and being visible and speaking your truth. And especially from my psychology days, I do so much work around the subconscious mind, which is programmed to
Mm.
keep us alive. Like it literally thinks in terms of survival. So it can
Yeah.
be a lot of reprogramming work to allow ourselves to know that it is safe to show up. It is safe to be our authentic self, because there's a lot that tells us we have to look and talk and be a certain way in order to fit in and be acceptable. So when we break through some of those constructs, that in and of itself is so liberating.
Oh my gosh, I remember it's so funny that you said that because my first experience was just like I wanted to write a book and get the book out. And when I did the book and it was time to like be visible, I was like, whoa, 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 like everything in my body was frozen and I didn't understand why. It's like I did the thing and go do the thing. Like there was this gap that I couldn't figure out. And it's so profound how many women that I work with say the same thing. I'm sure you've had those examples of life kind of repeating in clients, right? But the truth was, I was about to understand exactly that. I was about to study for the next 3 years the subconscious mind as well, and it rocked my world. It changed my entire life, and I couldn't figure out why people wouldn't want to be liberated from all the pain and the struggling. And so I'm talking about emotions and all these things, and when everyone's like, "What are you talking about?" But at the time, it was so profound because it made such a huge change in how I held anger or no longer held anger, what I thought was all the problems in my life that really wasn't, what everything else was hiding me from. And the fact that we could actually change not just our thinking, because I was on board with that. Like, let me change my thoughts to positive thoughts. And then I'd have really good result. But it really drove me into the depth of, I think, introducing me to my soul at that point, like really clearing away all those layers that weigh us down and being able to understand, like, this is trauma and this is how you move it through the body and it doesn't have to be that way forever. And it, as I connect dots looking back, like I also asked the point, like, we'll always be healing, but do we have to go back to heal? And that's when I started learning more about love frequency, harmony, universal love, Christ consciousness, and really landing into this next layer. I got exactly what I asked for. And so we'll always be healing, but we don't have to go backwards, where sometimes we can get ourselves stuck in that loop as well. And so I'd love for you to talk about that because I know the blueprints have a big piece of that with our journey.
Absolutely. And, I think it's so powerful that some of that fear came up and the trauma came up for you at the time, that you were at such a big turning point in your life of being seen in a new way. And I always say, like, our business is our greatest vehicle for growth and evolution. I know growing my business, it brings every fear, every doubt, insecurity to the surface, and it gives me the opportunity to shift, to heal.
Yes.
And I think in order to continue growing, we have to, or I don't like to use the word have to, but we are invited to continue in that healing process if we want to see that evolution. So I just want to say how, common that is as well when we are going to new
Mm,
milestones, or we're going to be visible or seen in a new way, that the trauma from the past can come up again. And,
yeah.
it's it's those first like 7 years of our life, those first 7 years where our belief system and our subconscious is being formed. So it's basically we take on the belief system of our caregivers. They become our subconscious programming. And whatever else happens in those early years form the lens in which we see the world through. And then we go through these experiences in life and we get to see our reactions, our responses, or where we may have that trauma. And it's all an opportunity to do those deeper layers of healing. And I think
Yeah.
exactly what you said, sometimes we shy away from it because we don't want to go back and revisit the trauma. And I agree with you. We don't have to. And we do want to be aware of not getting lost in that cycle of where we feel we're continually healing and we have to heal every
Mm,
trauma or release every unhelpful belief before we can move forward. And that's not the case either. So there
right.
definitely is the aspect of bringing in our higher self. So connecting with our soul, connecting with our higher self. And our higher self is an extension of us. So it's not like our higher self exists outside of us. And our higher self is free from the beliefs we've taken on this life journey, from the trauma that we carry. So the more that we're aligning with that consciousness of our higher self, we begin to shift our vibration, what we experience physically. We begin to change how we see the world. So it's not about bypassing or not addressing the trauma, but it's simply seeing it through a new lens, being able to
Yeah.
take a lesson from it, but not repeat the cycle, not stay in a cycle of punishment. And there's something about simply having the awareness that is the starting point for creating that shift. Because as soon as we're aware, it's no longer unconscious. We're aware of the pattern.
Right.
So this is where we now get to put in and practice a new pattern. And it is possible to rewire our brain to see things in a new way. And I do think, one of my favorite ways to do that, I honestly have so many tools from my psych days as well that I still bring into my work. But a big part now is doing this work in the Akashic Records of connecting in to our higher self, to this new way of seeing the world, or coming back to our blueprint through astrology. I use that as well, which can also, studying the astrology can help us make sense of the different things on our life journey. So the times that felt really hard, or we may have navigated situations where we're questioning, why did this have to happen? Understanding our astrology, our blueprint, can help us see what we were meant to navigate during that time. Like, it no longer feels like, oh, we were being punished. We're able to see how it fits into the bigger picture as well.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. Can you tell us about the Akashic Records? What are they specifically? How do you utilize them and teach them? And then, like, um, if it pertains, like, what is the journey that one would go through during that kind of process?
Yeah, the Akashic Records were really like game changing for me. So at that time, I had been on my spiritual journey, consciously on my spiritual journey. I was working on growing my business, and I came across somebody who worked in the Akashic Records, and I really felt drawn to her and her energy. So I actually reached out to book a session with her. And from working in that space, I started to see so many beautiful shifts and changes unfolding in my life. So, this is actually when I started to see incredible growth and expansion in my business, where I started to go from, really struggling to make money or confused about like what my path and purpose was, to having a lot more clarity. So I saw these incredible shifts. It even supported me in healing a lot of trauma that I had. So I'm like, okay, I want to learn more about this. I've got to dive in and
Right?
learn more about the records. And to the point that I actually went on to get certified in the records. And years later, I now certify others in the records because of the profound shift it caused in my life and continues to have in my life. So the Akashic Records is basically an energetic realm that we can tap into, and it contains the unique journey of our soul. So when we tap into our records, we gain deeper clarity on the soul gifts that we are here to share, what our highest path and timeline is. It's a way to connect into our higher self, into our spirit team. It can also be seen as an energetic database, so like a holding space for every idea, every thought that has ever or will ever exist. So when we're tapping into that realm, we're really accessing this beautiful bank of infinite intelligence, of so many beautiful ideas and possibilities. So it definitely has a way of aligning us with our highest path and timeline and bringing us back to our blueprint for success. So how we define success, because it's easy to have those definitions projected onto us, right? We've all had that experience of like, this is what success is meant to look like. And I think especially on social media now, it's so easy, if we're not aware, to compare ourselves to other people and maybe the milestones they're reaching and what they're celebrating. And if we don't really have locked in that this is my truth, this is my definition of success, it can get very confusing. So the
Hmm.
records is a way for us to come back home to our truth, to our path. It is also so supportive in clearing away beliefs that are not a match to who we really are. Because there's a lot of beliefs that exist in the collective, or that we can even take on and practice, that are really just not useful. So it helps us clear away beliefs that are not
Yeah.
useful, not aligned to where we want to go, and replace them with ones that are actually a match to our soul's truth and can support us in having the experiences that we want on a soul level.
Yeah, I love that. How did you were talking about doing astrology at first, and then you landed into the Akashic record, and then that's when your business really blew up. Like, what do you think was the determining factor? Was it just the ability for you to shift some of the beliefs that were keeping you like stuck or holding yourself back a little bit? or was there something specific you discovered or uncovered in as language that would be used or how you'd be presenting yourself?
Yeah, I got so much clarity in the records. It's like it just brought me back to like the work that I'm really here to do. Because at that time, I was pretty early on in my business. I was teaching a lot at that point. I'm trying to think back now around like balanced living, stress management, things that were helpful, but maybe didn't really fully light me up. Like I was still figuring out like what actually lights me up, where is my magic? And being in the records, I started to get downloads around what that looks like. Like it's actually when I started my Facebook group as well, I received just being in that space. I'm like, this is the name of the group. This is what you're going to teach on in this space. Like literally the information dropped in. It was amazing. So a big part of it was the clarity. The other
Yeah.
part that really helped me as well was from that higher vantage point, I saw worthiness in a new way. So I used to
Mm.
question, and I think a lot of us go through this like, am I worthy of really having the abundance I want or the success that I want, the partner I want? We can fill in for so many areas. And I started to realize that worthiness isn't even a question from that space. It's like our human self that questions whether we are worthy. But from the Akashic field, like our higher self is never questioning whether we are worthy or not. It's simply about if you desire this, allow yourself to align with it, especially if it's a soul
Right.
desire. So that was one of the biggest shifts, I think, that helped me really grow rapidly in my business from that point. So it was definitely the clarity that it brought, but also it was like a whole new lens to see the world through, not questioning my
Mm.
worthiness, clarity on what my gifts are, and really knowing it and beginning to learn how to read my records as well, having an understanding that so much of what I desired was written, and this is for all of us, is written in our records for us to claim. So our desires are actually a glimpse into what is in our records waiting for us to claim. So we don't have to question whether we're worthy or if it's going to happen. It's a deeper knowingness of this is destined for us. It doesn't matter what others are doing, like no one can take
Right.
what is in there for us. So those were some of the fundamental changes that took place.
Yeah, I love that. And are there different names? Like, are there different names for the Akashic records? I just out of curiosity for my own self, like I know that there's the Book of Life, and then there's the Akash, I believe it's known as. Like, what can you share with us about that? So, um,
Yeah, there has been different names over time. Like you said, the Book of Life, because the records is like this holding place or this holding ground for past, present, and future. But essentially, time's experienced differently in that space. So our human self sees it as like past life or future timeline or present. But really, in that space, it's more just energy and frequency. So another name is the
yeah.
Book of Life or the Akasha. Some people may call it the mind of God. So there has been different terms placed around the records over time. Yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I was just thinking, in terms of my background in learning about numerology, with the cards, we call it the Book of Life because it's the ancient wisdom from Book of Life. And so there's many aspects that parallel with some of the work of as you've been speaking it, our patterns and different things to look at. And so I love that there's such a multiplicity of ways for people to experience what calls to them, because I feel like when you experience one, you want to experience another. And so it really just leads you down this
Yeah.
experiential of yourself. You're really just wanting to know more or confirm more or understand deeper about who you really are and what your purpose is on this lifetime, which to me, I feel like knowing who we really are and remembering is that purpose. And then how we want to express it is however it makes our soul sing and lights us up, and everyone is just so uniquely gifted and so different that it takes a world of us to be able to be sharing that out there.
So
Just so
true. Yeah,
good.
beautifully said. And I think there's so many ways we can explore energetic blueprints. So numerology is definitely a way, astrology, the records. What I love about the records too is we can bring like any other modality into that space. So that's how I
Mm.
started to couple the magic of astrology with the records is I would pull up people's birth chart, which is basically like our energetic blueprint at the time we were born. And, you
Yep.
know, similar. I'm not an expert in numerology, but from
I'm
what
not
I
an expert in astrology either, but right, they cross a little bit. I
Oh,
love
they
that.
do. Well, it's like it's all our energy, right? Whether it's human design, numerology, or even like Western astrology or more Vedic astrology, like people sometimes get caught up in the differences. And there are very distinct differences, but at the end of the
Mhm.
day, it's all our blueprint, it's our energy. So it's different ways of understanding and coming back home to our truth. So I think it's, what you said, Michelle, like it's almost addictive in a way when you start entering this world because it's like coming home to your truth. And it
Yeah.
feels so powerful in understanding like yourself and what your gifts are and what your path is, and maybe even understanding some of the shadow aspects of your personality so you can navigate that. And I remember in my psychology days, I used to love doing the personality quizzes. They're like the personality tests. So like diving into those as a way of understanding other people, understanding myself. And then when I came across astrology, I'm like, this is like the best personality test you could ever take because it's unique
Exactly.
to your soul blueprint. Like it's deeper, right, than just measuring
Yes.
traits. Like it's also a way to gain insight on what your path is this lifetime. Like so many people question what's my purpose and path, and astrology can give us insight on that. And I think at the same time,
Hmm.
path and purpose shifts and changes over time.
Yes.
And,
I
there's
totally
a
agree.
nuanced conversation. And sometimes we get so focused on like, what is this one purpose that we're forgetting that your purpose could be joy in this moment, love in this moment. But astrology definitely can give us insight on like the skills, the talents, the direction we are being pulled in and called in this lifetime, and then what we are learning to release and let go of this lifetime. So this also
Yeah.
goes back to that conversation that we're actually all on our own journey. We're all on our own
Mhm.
journey. So we're learning different lessons while we are here, and yet we're all part of co-creating together. So our blueprint can really give insight on what is my path this lifetime that can bring me the greatest amount of joy as well.
I love that. So then you took all your learning and your love of the Akashic record and you turned it into a certification program. So I feel like I have two questions. So maybe we'll start with the people that find you. Like, are they all over across the spectrum from just beginning and curious down to like seasoned coaches or healers or teachers that come in as well as just another beautiful pull to learn just something a little bit more deeper to share with their clientele? And then the second part of that is, would you share more about that with us and how you've designed your beautiful certification?
Yeah, yes, I really felt the call to move into certifying others in this beautiful modality after just seeing like the changes that had unfolded in my life. And definitely the records have a way of meeting us where we are. So it's really amazing to see people that are, been on their spiritual journey for a while, or very successful businesses that are feeling called to the records. And also people who may be at the beginning of that journey, but there's something
Mhm.
about the records that are calling them in. So there are so many beautiful modalities in the world, and I think we're drawn to the right ones for us at the right time. And I always say when the records call us in, we're ready to have our life transformed in the most beautiful ways because I've seen that time and time again. I'm like, you're going to enter a portal of incredible transformation, of coming back to your truth, of just seeing manifestations accelerate it in such a beautiful way, like really aligning to your highest path for this life journey. So definitely people from all different areas in terms of where they are in their business or where they are in their spiritual journey, because the records also have a way of meeting us where we are and supporting
Mhm.
us from there. And that's the beauty of working with our blueprint. It's not like step-by-step strategies. And I think those are becoming less common, not that they don't have a place.
Right.
Everything has a place for different people at different times. And I think it's so powerful when we're able to come back to our blueprint. And the records can really give us so much clarity on different things we're navigating in our life, like anything from where we're called to travel, to programs, we're called to release, like anything. We can learn to go to the records and ask those questions and receive that guidance. So people really love that aspect of being able to like tap into this
Right.
of wisdom and receive guidance if they've been stuck in a place of just confusion or overwhelm.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
Yeah, going through the certification, you learn basically how to read your records, how to access the Akashic field. So it also just gives an incredible tool to add into your business as well. Because again, it works so well with every modality, whether numerology, astrology, Reiki, we've had theta healers go through, or it's life coaching. Like you can bring all of that into the records and still like work all your magic and your protocols, and you're just doing that from the realm of the records, or bringing people into their records and working from that space. So it just always adds an element of healing and clarity that will come through. So going through, you learn to not only read your records, but read for other people. And a lot of the work I love to do in the records to involve activations and healing. So it's not just simply tapping into someone's records and reading what's there. I really like the process of helping people access that information for themselves, hence the certification, so they feel empowered. But also just, releasing any of like the stagnant energy in our body or any of the density that we can hold from trauma that we've experienced, from challenges. And we all have trauma and challenges. And if we don't clear that from our body, it starts to feel really heavy. It starts to feel really dense, and that affects our emotional health and our physical health. So I love bringing people through a process that clears that, or simply clears energy they've taken on from places and people that's not a match to their blueprint. So really learning to come back to their blueprint and operate from that space. So that's a big part of the certification as well.
That's beautiful. Now, I'm thinking if this is like a hall of records, right? Can you access something like past lives? And is that even pertinent to the study of like to the use of how that would be presented to clients or for yourself? Like, I guess I'm gonna leave it at that, let you talk.
No, I love that question because I think past lives fascinate
Can
all
you
of us.
access the past life through, yeah, right. Right. And I guess I came across something where like, can you access the past lives through the Akashic Records? And I thought, well, maybe I'll just ask you and see what your take is on it. Cause I think there's all kinds of different takes.
Yes, you absolutely can access past lifetimes in the Akashic Records. That's one of the things that I love to help people do as well, but with the focus of how it's going to support you on your journey today. So we
Yeah.
can have certain traumas or fears that emerge that extend beyond this lifetime. So they started in another life and they have threads that are running through this lifetime. So that's something else that's really interesting about past lifetimes. Anytime I've explored that for myself or a client, the themes that emerge from a past life are present somehow in this lifetime. So it's like the journey's continuing because we're meant to heal that and release that, not stay stuck in the pattern. So we can absolutely travel to different timelines in the records, access a past life, take the lesson from that lifetime and release some of the trauma that we may be holding on to so we don't have to repeat that pattern in this lifetime. It's actually very,
I love
very
that.
common. Yeah, but I
Yeah,
love
I really like that. I love that. I mean, I love that whole idea of finding our pattern anyway. You know, honestly, it doesn't matter where it came from, but if you can have an expanded awareness of that, that's kind of awesome. And at the same time, how did we carry it? What is it doing now? And what can we do to move it and create something new, which is super powerful and empowering, obviously.
it's
Where can people go ahead? I feel like there's a delay.
I was just gonna say it's very liberating to like release ourselves from it, because by the time we may have like the idea that this could be a past life or that a fear or pattern is causing difficulty in our life, like we're so ready to release it and often we feel trapped in it. So it's so liberating to recognize like, no, you don't have to stay trapped in that. In fact, we are never meant
Mhm.
to stay trapped in unwanted cycles or patterns. We're meant to take the lesson, release it. As I say that too, I've noticed some people get caught up in, well, what if I don't know the lesson? So the records can help give us clarity on like what that lesson is, or we can also just simply decide we're done with that pattern. We get to take what served us and release.
Yeah.
That's the main thing, right? We don't have to repeat
Yeah.
things that no longer are useful for us.
Yeah, I love that a lot because I know like when I first started studying trauma, it's not even easy to say trauma, right? Because sometimes stuff happens, some things we don't want to go back and visit, but also remembering that stress over time is trauma. So we've got the micro and the macro traumas. And so we're really not gonna escape this life without receiving some kind of experience in life that was stressful or sadly traumatic. And yet it doesn't have to be the thing that defines us or the thing that we're at the whim of. And so I love that we're looking at patterns, we're looking at subconscious mind, we're helping move all of that to the present and make that new decision. Because I always say all the time, like, indecision is still a decision. And yet we don't often know where we thought we decided, but the commitment to the energy of what we're doing next and how we're going to step through is the very thing that can help really put us into that aligned action. And it sounds like through the certification and through the Akashic Records, you have such an easeful way where the energies and the emotions and even the thinking patterns can shift along with it, which is really beautiful.
Oh,
Where can people know more about you?
sure. Well, I do have the upcoming mini series for anyone that's like hearing about the records and they're interested, they want to go deeper. And this is a free mini series, and it's all about living in alignment with your highest path for impact, abundance, and leadership through accessing the records. So these are all themes, I mean, at any time that are good to tap into if people are listening to this at a later time. But throughout 2024, leadership is really in the spotlight, like how we are leading ourselves, no longer waiting for permission, holding back, like we're willing to lean in. There's so much going on astrologically that's like, it's a new leader emerging, and really we each have the ability to do that. So there's going to be a focus around leadership, how we lead ourselves, what it means to be a heart-centered, soul-led leader. We're also going to look at abundance, which is another big theme in 2024, like anchoring in the true essence of abundance. We're seeing the frequency of money is really shifting right now for the collective. And of course, abundance goes deeper than just money. It's financial abundance, but abundance is that feeling of, more than enough, releasing scarcity and lack, being in that vibration of overflow. So we're going to look at that and creating impact, because many of the people that find their way into my world, they really want to make an impact on the planet. They really want to help transform other people's lives. Like they do have this sense that they are here on purpose. So we're going to take a deeper look at really creating that impact that's in your heart to create on the planet.
Oh, I love it. I'm so excited. I'm excited for you. I'm excited for everyone who says yes and steps into the experience. And for those that will find their way and find themselves through your beautiful experience of certification, which is so, it's just really heart opening and wonderful to know, not just for me knowing you and knowing how far you've come with your expression and your business, but just the possibilities that are out there for people to really rediscover who they are, which is so beautiful.
Oh, thank you, Michelle. And yeah, it's been such a journey for me, and learning to show up in my authentic truth and feeling confident being visible. And I know that journey is just going to continue, and it feels amazing to empower others in that process too.
It's so good. Okay, well, let's leave it with one final question. One of those profound, deep thinking, what do you have for the world today? Let's see. So your question would be, if you had one thing looking back on your younger self
Mm.
that she didn't know then, that with
Mm.
all your wisdom you can share now, that would help someone else who could even connect with your story or just the resonance of this conversation, what would that wisdom be?
Oh, that's such a good question. Oh, the initial thing that dropped in, like what I would tell my younger self, I see my 7-year-old self, I would say, you are enough and you are worthy. And the best gift you can give the world is being your authentic self, being in your truth, be all of you. So that's what's dropped in, Michelle. I'm gonna go with
I
that.
love it. I'm not going to argue with that. I love it so much. And I think it's a beautiful way to end our conversation today. Thank you so much for being here, for sharing your love and your light and your beauty and just everything that you sparkle with in this world. I'm so glad that you are out there, that you said yes, that you got beyond all of those things that were keeping you from holding you back so you can make your mark on the world and people can find you. So in the show notes, we'll have all the links for where they can connect with you and get signed up for your free challenge or your free experience. And then as well, find out more about your certification. Thank you again for being here. I've just loved this conversation so much.
Oh, thank you, Michelle. This was a lot of fun. Thank you.
All right, we'll see you guys next time. Thank you.